Sadie. This is your Captain John. And, it's a good one. It's a good day. It's a good show. I'm just a little sleepy today. I don't know why. I had a great night last night hanging out with friends. And it was very Star Trekky, which I love. So here we are, about to have another recap and review of a Star Trek show. I don't do it alone. No, Captain. I mean, maybe captains, but I'm a captain. And no captain can do it without his number one. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Flobo Boy.
I'm freaking out, man. I'm just imagine that would be just totally on the Starbase. No help to ourselves. What's going on, Captain? Happy Sunday.
Oh, happy Sunday, sir. I'm not in love with this light. I don't know why I didn't. I don't know why I didn't do that earlier. All right, there we go. Flobo.
That's me.
One of the things that's great about you for the people watching is you are a newer fan of the Trek.
Yes, Queen.
By about 3+ years at this point.
November 18.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Okay. And
we say this every week. Why are you interested now? Oh, okay.
Well, it's specifically for the people who are tuning in for the first time. Dude.
Oh, fascinating.
Come on, help me get new viewers here.
I thought this show was seen by billions of people every week. I didn't know people haven't seen the show.
You are the only thing that brings people to this show. So
that is a lie, besides Craig. Craig's cool.
Craig
has seen me on 3 Star Trek shows this week. He is an OG.
Seriously, Craig, you have earned an infield promotion, a wartime promotion, if you will. I don't know if you're an enlisted man or if you're Starfleet, but let me know. I'll get your proper promotion squared away with absolutely nothing. I will not give anything. I promise nothing. That way, when I don't deliver, everybody's like, that's on brand.
I don't deliver. It's on brand. Does that mean you have a brand then?
I welcome you to the show, person who is tuning in. Flobo Boyce is a comedian and a writer and a very good friend of mine, and his takes on Star Trek are always wonderful.
Captain, is this a season premiere? Why are we doing this?
I'm always hoping we're bringing in new people, and I need them to know what they're watching.
I do the yucks. Sometimes people laugh, and most times they don't. That's
Junior Ensign. I like it. Very prodigy, very Star Trek prodigy. Mm-hmm. You're a junior ensign, Craig, and we're lucky to have you with us. We are, I'm an old sawdust covered rodeo clown of the Star Trek fandom, and I do go way back with the show, but this one is interesting. We are talking about Scorpion from the series Star Trek Voyager. And I had not watched this before. There is a huge pile of Voyager episodes and seasons, frankly, that I never watched because, frankly, I didn't like the show that much when it came out.
I can't believe you're saying this.
Be honest. That's what I say. Be honest. That's why I always admit to you how often I screw up.
I this kind of reminds me of an Enterprise anecdote I was reading this week about the guy who played Dr. Phlox being approached to be part of Strange New Worlds and saying, one, the makeup was a pain in the butt, but the other thing was, when Enterprise came on, when these new shows came on, there were so many haters of the properties like yourself. They're like, why would you want to go back now? I thought that was a kind of a cool note that you look back on it as being classic Trek, but for a while it wasn't.
Oh, yeah. And that's really significant, too, because the shows were very much shaped, especially in the recent years. So, Next Generation had a bit of a rocky start, but it became a very beloved series pretty quickly. It was winning Emmys. It had some love and some respect, especially since it was a syndicated show. It wasn't a network show. So it didn't have all that network promotion and network protection. It was out there on its own, fighting it out in the little markets and doing very well. Like, one reason why they went to 7 seasons in Next Generation, which was kind of unheard of with a syndicated show, was it was doing so well. One of the reasons why DS9 was created was because the syndicators, the little stations that were playing it, your little Fox stations, your little UHF stations in the cities all across the world, they were like, Next Generation does so well. Give us more. Give us more.
Right.
By the time we get to Voyager, Voyager's on UPN. And UPN is not a powerful network. It is a little startup. I was on UPN as a cast member of Homeboys in Outer Space.
And once it kicked you off, it was all downhill from there, baby.
They kicked me out. And really, they went 1 season. Hey, you could have had 5. You could have had 5.
Boys in outer space. Oh, that theme song slapped, bro. Check it out on YouTube.
There was this is funny. Let's talk about that. Craig brings up the fact that when Voyager premiered, there was a lot of blowback about Tuvok, the Black Vulcan.
For those
Did you
of
ever
you
hear about any of that, Flobo?
So actually, I have. First of all, shout out to Craig, a man of brown himself, a man of color himself. It's funny because I didn't. This is going to make no sense for those of you who lived outside of the UPN era, but for a long time after Fox's Thursday Night Negro Night kind of petered out, UPN was like the home for black shows. Like Sparks had James Avery, the Shredder from the animated series, Uncle Phil. And one of the 2 things they think about when I think about the UPN era was a Black Vulcan and the Secret Diary of Desmond Pfeiffer, which was the story of a house.
McBride, by the way.
Brian McBride, a story about a guy that was he was a valet, which is not a manservant, but it was a valet of President Lincoln. During the Civil War. And I liked Desmond Pfeiffer, but I remember the discourse at UPN having people of color in roles of being so clumsy about it, which was actually worse for the culture or not. So it's kind of a weird thing that I knew of Tuvok in this bubble outside of watching Star Trek. But it's funny you say that, Craig, because on my notes, literally I have, is Tuvok the greatest Vulcan of all time? Hot take.
Oh, that is a hot take. I always love Tuvok. I always loved Tim Russ, the guy who plays Tuvok. Very sincere man. You should check him out on YouTube one of these days. He's a musician. He has music videos. And he's got soul, of course he does. Very, very sort of Southern Chicago kind of rock and roll. It's really worth checking out.
Nice.
When he was asked at the very beginning, like, is it unusual that there is a Black Vulcan? Well, at that time in Star Trek, it was unusual that anyone who wasn't white was some other, space race.
Yeah.
Star Trek was kind of built on the idea of like different kinds of white people all through the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they would go like, the question was, is it unusual? And Tim Russ said, well, I imagine Vulcan has 2. I imagine it has 2 hemispheres. And in the southern hemisphere, you tend to get brown and black people. So no, it's not unusual.
People got so upset about that, I can imagine.
People are so like protective of what they identify with in fandom. I know we run into that all the time. You hear people say this new Star Trek Discovery, it's so woke. Oh, it's woke. Well, first off, it's showing you new life forms and new civilizations that are new to you, Gomer, that don't exist in your little town in East Hayseed, USA. So
not even the regular Hayseed, the East Hayseed. That's always across the train tracks. That's even worse.
Bad side of Hayseed. You don't want to be from the east side. Look, I grew up in a little town, but then I went to live in big cities, and I met a huge, diverse array of people. Everything about the people that I know is in one way different from what I knew when I was a kid, and I didn't respond to it with bad feelings.
Yeah.
That I think is the secret. I'm just saying to all my fellow salty saltines, just stop it. Scrape some salt off. Let some toppings get on you. Enjoy life. Jump in some soup. Have some. Do things that make life better. Okay, I'm sorry.
I've lived long enough to hear a state of the cracker address from my captain. What is happening on this Sunday? Hey, what's up, Glenn? Who's coming through?
Oh, Glenn, thanks for being with us. Glenn Rauscher is here. Glenn and I went to college together.
Oh, what's up? That's cool. Ithaca, right?
Ithaca College. That is correct.
I tell you, man, everyone went to Ithaca. It's kind of weird.
It is a crazy party school, and I can tell you for a fact that Glenn Rauscher was not a crazy partier. He was an artist, disc jockey.
So he's the guy in the pamphlet, like, be like Glenn, and you get that. I was like, party!
You're not wrong. You are not in any way wrong. Glenn's the guy they're proud of, and then there's people like me.
Right.
Craig says some of the same objections to Michael Burnham and Discovery sound very similar to old Tuvok complaints. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I guess from my experience, the big thing they would hide behind it is they would say, "Hey, man, Spock never mentioned he had a sister, therefore she's invalid." And you're like, "Well, for I can tell, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Star Trek universe. Spock didn't say he had a fiance till really late, and Kirk had a son randomly in Star Trek too. Like, hold on, like it just happens, bro."
That's a good point. Like family pops up all the time. There are 2 illegitimate clone sons of Jean-Luc Picard.
Damn.
In canon. 2. That's like, I mean,
just sown as synthetic oats everywhere. I can't believe it.
And many proposed characters that never came about. So, yeah, there's a lot of there is more in your it's more in the world than is in your philosophy. Why am I quoting things I don't know? There's a Shakespearean quote that basically says there's more to life than you're thinking, folks, and people should always keep that in mind. Let's talk Scorpion. A Voyager episode. We looked at part 1 last week. This week we look at part 2. Overall, what'd you think of this episode there, Mr. Boyce?
I liked it. I liked it in tandem with Scorpion part 1. If you guys remember last week, I was saying, why is this a whole episode? I get it now. The only 2 gripes that I would have with this is kind of irrelevant to this. And that is, I can't imagine waiting an entire season to see the end of this. I think that to me is not earned to be a cliffhanger. Yes. And it was painfully obvious that there was some producer being like, "Oh, we need to add more cast members. How do we do this?" And we'll get into that too. How this progresses with 7 of 9. I mean, that was kind of a gripe of how ham-fisted she ended up on the ship. But the show itself, the episode itself was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's the thing. Again, I should probably come up with a name for it, but you mentioned it just a few minutes ago, which is the idea at the time as opposed to the idea now. The idea at the time was, you have to remember, this happened with DS9, Deep Space Nine, then Voyager, then Enterprise, then every other Trek after that was probably okay. But in the middle there, you had this moment, and it happened with the movies too. It comes out, people go, "Oh, it's not the magical thing I hoped it was going to be. It's more kind of regular and normal Trek, and I was kind of hoping it would be the magic wand that makes everything, explode into wonderfulness." And when that disappointment happens, then everyone panics and everyone thinks, this is the show that's not going to last. This is the show that's not going to meet its goals, and it's going to get ended early. And that did happen with Enterprise. So it's not like that fear wasn't founded, but the disappointment has all of this like panic attached to it. Thankfully, we can look back now and go, wow, look at this big variety of shows under the Star Trek umbrella. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, I always get very wary when I say, "Hey, how was whatever this is?" And someone goes, "I wanted to like it." Like, what does that even mean? Of course, you want to like it. You're watching it for a reason. Unless you wanted to hate it, then why are you wasting your time? Well, it just failed because I wanted to like it. So
Right. And then there's the old, like, incredibly subjective level that people work on too, which is, and it happens all the time with supposed new Trek, that there's this whole bunch of fans that are like, I hate where Trek is now. I hate it because it's too diverse. And everybody's like, Trek was always diverse, man. It just wasn't diverse enough. It was always ahead of the curve,
right,
but it wasn't always crazy diverse. It is now.
yeah,
I was
yeah.
watching Picard earlier this week. There's a Bajoran,
Also Miss Network.
who's clearly an East Indian woman, a woman from India, and
Lieutenant Singh. Oh, she's my favorite.
she's really awesome. And I'm like, yeah, infinite diversity and infinite combinations. That's Star Trek, man.
Yeah. But if she's single, hey.
Let's talk about 7 of 9. 7 of 9 is finally introduced in this one. I have to admit, when I first was aware, and I wasn't watching the show, but I'm reading Entertainment Weekly every week. I'm on the internet, and I'm like, wait, they're adding a cast member to the 4th season. And then I got a picture of her. Let's take a look at Craig Robinson's line here. Funny that they give her a grand stepping out entrance when they could have technically used one of the drones they already had in the scene. Yeah, they made a big deal out of introducing you to Miss, Robot 362436 over there. Although I think maybe the first number is higher and the last number is lowest. I think perhaps. But look, commenting on people's bodies is wrong, and I'm not going to do that.
That's what we're doing. I was totally lost. I went to public school, man. You gotta break things down for me.
362436.
Oh, I get it.
Do you know that reference?
No,
it's measurements.
Oh, okay. Yes, I know they were measurements, but I thought you were talking about something. Okay, all right.
Okay,
slowly uptake.
It wasn't a great joke. It's just always crazy to me that Jeri Ryan was such eye candy at the time. She I really am happy that she is 7 of 9. I'm really happy that she's a good actor. I've seen her do. I watch Psych when I eat my lunch. She was awesome. She has been hot, and as Leo Genesek points out, still is. Very much so. And
by the way, hey Leos, I love you on Supplemental. You're great.
but the thing, he was great on Supplemental. Thursdays right after Commander's Log.
Yeah, 8 p.m. Eastern.
The hotness of Jeri Ryan is extremely distracting. Too distracting, do you find, Flobo, or folks in the comments? Was her hotness too distracting? Because I say it was.
Well, it's interesting because, again, 7 of 9 was a character that crossed over many UPN commercials and other shows. So I was a SmackDown kid, and you always feature 7 of 9 on next Tuesday. It's Voyager. As a kid, you kind of got it because it looked like she was wearing silver pajamas, and you're like, well, this is totally designed to accentuate curves. But
yeah,
I didn't quite. This is going to sound. I'm trying to turn my words carefully. It was not distracting to me because if I was a Borg and I was going to assimilate people, I would try to do peak physical form. So, like, the fact that she was improbably beautiful was, to me, will make sense why they would want to assimilate her as opposed to, like, me or something. You know what I mean? Like, you want to make sure you have, like, the Adam and Eve of every corn you go after. So it didn't bother me at all.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. She really is a tremendous specimen of human awesomeness. Very beautiful and athletic and in good shape. And God bless Jeri Ryan. We do still love her. Let's talk about the specifics of Scorpion Part 2. This is, of course, the first episode of season 4 of Voyager. Voyager, at this point, had kind of settled in to what it was in terms of the cast and the characters and their relationships with one another. And their ratings were not great.
Nope.
They're working for Paramount directly, UPN. And the order comes down that some people gotta go. At the end of season 3, Kes, a character who has not really had psychic powers up to this point, suddenly has psychic powers. Gives us a lot of information. She's, I think, extremely different from where they started the character. They started the character, that short little pixie haircut. She's tiny little Jennifer Lean, tiny little actor. And she's the girlfriend of the chef, morale officer, Neelix.
Blech.
I hate that character. And he's got an underage girlfriend. Of course he does. He's okay. Here's the thing about Neelix. Neelix is so white trash.
Here's the thing. There are many things wrong with Neelix, but you're right.
He's such trash. He's just got this underage girlfriend, and she's just, so dependent on him. Craig, I'm going to take a look at it now just seems obvious and standoutish, like Troy, Kes, and Vulcan Woman from Enterprise. Oh yeah. Please, the boys in their basements. Oh, I'm sorry. Please, the boys in the basements. I totally see that. They add hot women all the time. As a matter of fact, Voyager is interesting because it's got extremely capable women like Captain Janeway, Torres, very gifted, intelligent, really talented. And then it's got like Kes is like the damsel in distress. She becomes a little less so as the first 3 seasons go on, which is great. That's a great sort of evolution for her. She becomes the Doctor's right-hand gal. She's teaching the Doctor how to become more human because, of course, he's a hologram. And but she's doing something that we didn't know she could do. It's kind of weird how they're shuffling things around here. And the hotness factor, I don't know if it was ever there with Kes. I just always thought it was weird that they had the character Kes to begin with. And now she's going through some stuff. And if you're also a fan, you're hearing rumors that someone's getting cut from the show. Someone's on their way out. And you start looking at all of the cast members on the show. Well, nobody can really do what Torres does. Of course, Janeway is safe. I don't know. They're going to get rid of Tuvok. They might get rid of the Black Vulcan. You never know. Chakotay, to me, I love Robert Beltran, who plays him. And he's really pretty strong in this episode. Flobo, you're giving me the gas face. What's going on?
Yes, I am, because I'm so old to get that reference. First of all, I kind of tee-heed we said the Black Vulcan, like the character from Super Friends, but that's not. I in my notes here, I have been completely neutral on Chakotay for a long time because it's kind of like, well, he's a space bureaucrat. Okay, I get it, But after this series, I'm just like, when? Are you whipped? Are you complaining? Are you trying to be self-serving? Oh, woe was me, Chakotay. Woe was friggin' me. So now I'm in the negative zone with him.
I mean, it's interesting this episode because they really hammer home. Okay, in part 1, there's that great little scene, and you even see it in the previously on Star Trek Voyager, where she is talking with Chakotay, Captain Janeway, and she says, 4 years ago, I didn't even know your name, and now I can't imagine a day without you. And Not bad, right? I
That
do
was
a
pretty on
pretty.
point. Yeah.
I do a good Kate Mulgrew. I don't lie. Uh, you know what? I am. Thank you, Glenn, and thank you, Flobo. I'm very proud of the gas space reference. Hey, man, I freaking love third base. I love that. The thing about Chakotay has been that he starts off as this rival captain. And when the two crews are put together, he immediately subjugates himself to Janeway. Okay.
Mhm.
All
Mhm.
right. And then pretty much from that point on, this was always my complaint. I used to like to call Star Trek Voyager Star Trek boyfriend, because it always seemed to me like any male character introduced on this show ends up being someone's boyfriend.
Oh yeah, this is totally Silver Age comic books. It's like Superman's girlfriend, Lois Lane. It's like, come on, or like,
So-
and then again, and even though I hate the character in the episode, the entire A plot or B plot, the Tuvix episode is like, I'm going to tell my girl I love her, even though I have two different parts. It sucks. Go back to the science, not that kind of science. You know what I'm saying? Like measurements.
I mean, seriously, the way that male characters work in this show is through their relationships with the female characters. It's just kind of how it works. And the characters who don't have female relationships, who don't have relationships, who don't have a girlfriend, are always in jeopardy of being cut from the show. Harry Kim, played by Garrett Wang, was in jeopardy of being fired because he wasn't popular and the writers didn't have much to do with him. Tuvok, same thing. He did have a good relationship with Janeway, which is crazy because he was part of Chakotay's crew. He really, granted, he was a narc on Chakotay's crew, but they don't explore that relationship very much. There's not a lot of Tuvok Chakotay scenes. As a matter of fact, one of the few scenes they had, Chakotay says, "We don't talk very much, do we?"
Yeah,
which is almost like
then,
the writers.
Was it totally meta, right?
Yeah,
I know we're totally getting off topic here, but another thing to realize is that because Voyager was in the UPN, I really feel a lot of this was the soup du jour. You know, there was the Love Boat, the Next Wave, you know, on that same network. So I get having studio notes being like, let's make this more like a soap opera in space, but it is not the time to do this. Not at all.
I couldn't agree more with every one of those points. The interest of this particular episode is also piqued by the fact that they've referenced the Borg before in Voyager, but now Voyager is in Borg space.
Mm-hmm.
The Borg, of course, for anybody who doesn't know, oh my gosh, I'm sure everybody knows. The Borg is a collective life form. It absorbs different individuals and their technology. It takes down entire civilizations, depopulates entire planets, and creates drones out of the basically corpses of the people that they defeat. So they are a scary hive mind monstrosity making their way across the Delta Quadrant where we are right now. They've also made many attacks on the Alpha Quadrant where Starfleet, and let's face it, Earth number one, Earth is the best. They have attacked in the past. They are a very formidable Star Trek foe. And yet, Flobo, who is even scarier? Who is even scarier than the space zombies that Craig points out are the Borg? Even scarier is species 8472. Have you memorized the number?
Yes, because I had it in my notes last week, and that's the only I can remember things by me writing it down. But it was interesting to me because I'm not sure what date, what did this episode air? Do you have it up ready to go?
I do. This episode, that I always love answering those questions too, because Because I once had a teacher who said history informs everything, and it was a film class. Glenn, you might remember Dr. Tomasulo. And he would say history is in every movie you see. So yes, this is 1997, September 3rd was when the season premiere of Voyager.
So it threw me off because then that means it aired 2 months before Starship Troopers, which is what the species kind of looks like, the bugs from that movie. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it was the same year. Maybe someone saw notes or whatever. But it really felt like that. It felt like a mixture of that plus like the Velociraptors from Jurassic Park, the way they've been kind of like scouring or what have you.
Yes. That you're absolutely right. Craig Robinson accuses me of Borg-splaining. I'm not sure he's wrong.
Wait, is he
yes. That's really, really interesting, Flobo, because I had forgotten about Starship Troopers, which was huge at the time. It was I always look at that kind of alien 8472 as being derivative of the xenomorphs from the Alien movies.
Okay, probably the same thing, right?
They're not far off. I mean, Starship Troopers is of course based on a line of books, and Insectoids is more. So meeting the two, putting the two together, you do get 8472. You know how I remember their name? 1984.
I'm just kidding.
1984. That's always scary. All right. The year 1984 is a scary year because of the novel 1984. And then 72 was the year that Richard Nixon was reelected, even though he was like one of the most popular human beings in the history of the United States at the time.
Okay. How did Nixon get in there?
I lived through it. Well, it's 1972, right? 84.
Right.
72. So I'm like, what was 1972 like? Oh, I remember. I was a little kid, and I remember George McGovern was running against Richard Nixon. And everybody was like, oh, George McGovern's a good man. He's going to pull this country out of this terrible place that Nixon got us. Nope. Nixon beat him by a landslide.
Whew. There you go.
And
you have it.
Well, that's absolutely true. Actually, good point brought up by Leo Janisek. The Borg were originally supposed to be insectoid, and they weren't because of it would be too expensive.
That sounds very Star Trek. Weren't the Klingons like dudes in coats back in the day?
They were swarthy dudes with like bad pancake makeup. And
yeah, swarthy. Reason that phrase, huh? Swarthy face.
Keith Jacobson dropped by to heckle me. 1984, Nixon, whatever works for you.
And I can't go to her, Keith, because he actually said this. This reminds me of Nixon, huh? Grandpa John's been drinking again.
All right. I'm like a substitute teacher teaching my own class here.
Never.
This is crazy.
I was thinking about you because I'm young. That's all. Younger.
Okay, I'm going to try to, because we're already 35 minutes in, I'm going to try to sweep through the plot of this episode. And what do I have in my notes? So, previously in part 1, Voyagers in Borg space. The Borg, they noticed, are running away from something. Kes is getting some psychic like, oh no, there's monsters out there. And then they go to investigate, and they're on a Borg cube, and that's when they run into 8472. 8472 is a monstrous species. They are cutting through the Borg like a hot knife through butter. Janeway has facilitated the doctor. I'm sorry, I jumped out of order. Harry gets infected by the species 8472. Harry is turning into some big puddle of snot or something. I don't know.
What the hell?
The hologram doctor figures out how he can cure Harry, and in doing so creates a countermeasure, pretty much a poison that will kill species 8472. Janeway understands they have a bargaining chip now. She goes to the Borg and she says, look, we need to get through your space. And if you let us get through your space, then we will give you this cure by the time we're gone. The Borg are like, give it to us now. Because they're dumb. The Borg, they're dumb. And she's like, no, I won't do that. Yes, you will. No, I won't. So anyway, that's part one.
You know, if you had your eyes closed, I'm imagining shadow puppets. No, damn it. No.
And
no, get away.
I love shadow puppets, but I hope you like wolves because that's the only shadow puppet I do. In this episode, Janeway is working with the Borg. She gets Tuvok over there. She is on a cube. They've given her a workspace, which is hilarious.
Better than my last job. Sit in that corner and sell his hand sanitizer. Fine. You know, whatever.
I guess you can use Jimmy's desk.
Mm-hmm.
So Chakotay is now in charge of Voyager. There is an attack by 8472. The Borg, this was kind of cool. The Borg put their cube in front of Voyager and 8472 blows them up. And then we find out that the Borg took a bunch of their drones and Tuvok and Captain Janeway, and they transported them to Voyager right before their cube blowed up.
Bam.
And then I believe that's when they go on the run again. And then Chakotay's like, hey, Janeway. Janeway's hurt at that point. So Chakotay's the captain now.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just my, weird
probably
thinking. Well, when Janeway is hurt, they have her in the in sick bay, and like she's shirtless. Like you're not looking at her chest or anything, but like they usually operate on people while they're wearing like a tablecloth or some kind of clothing. We're seeing a lot of Kate Mulgrew's skin. Did that throw you off at all? It threw me off.
I mean, well, now at the time it didn't, but now I guess you're right.
How often are they like, this person's hurt, let's get them naked? I mean, that does happen nowadays, but in
the more
we're
talking about the show, I realized that Star Trek Voyager is the CSI Miami of Star Trek. That's pretty cool. Let's do this on version.
Interesting.
Because if you remember the first season, they had Megan Donner, who was supposed to be Dave Caruso's like partner, and she was there for 10 episodes, and then she went to deal with things, and and it became the Caruso show. Something like Cass. She was there, moving on in another direction.
And it's there are rumors. That's the thing. They're just rumors, though, that the actor who played Cass she had issues. And you'd hear different kinds of rumors about she had anger control issues. She just had control issues. She may have had substance issues. There's all of this going on. She actually has a very lengthy post Voyager police record where she's been arrested for many, many different horrible things. So we kind of, without getting too much into it, we are kind of seeing Kes being pushed out. But Garrett Wang, and this is actually my favorite story from this era of Star Trek, Garrett Wang is cured. So the alien yellow gross crap that's all over him, B'Elanna Torres later when he's all better says, you've still got a tendril in your nose.
Jerk.
And he doesn't, and it's one of those like made you look.
Yeah.
Garrett Wang was going to be fired. There was a lot of talk that he was going to be fired. And then he ended up being one of People Magazine's 50 sexiest people of like 1997.
Okay. I guess that's the list of record, apparently. Can it save his job? Is that what you're saying?
It saved his job. It saved his job. Is that not the craziest thing?
What about us regular looking folk? I feel no one can save me.
Hey, man, I got fired off of Homeboys in Outer Space. If I'd been
Homeboys.
Garrett Wang good looking, that probably wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. So maybe that break between episodes saved his skin.
It's entirely possible. Entirely possible. That is the story that's told. They were like, I don't see any reason to keep Harry alive. We could just kill him and miss him, and he might be more valuable to us. And then they're like, oh, wait, People Magazine noticed him. And let's face it, there were not a lot of Asians on TV at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So Garrett Wang was really giving them something in terms of representation that they didn't generally have on UPN. So it all worked out. Honestly, I'm a big Harry Kim fan. I love Garrett Wang because he's always been one of the most vocal Star Trek fans who was on a Star Trek show.
I can't believe I'm plugging in Garrett Wong sexy in Google, but here we are.
And I wish I could tell you more about it, but there is a podcast if you want to go looking out there that Robert Duncan McNeil, who played Tom Paris, and Garrett Wang were doing together. They were doing a podcast.
Yeah.
And I saw one episode of it and it was hilarious.
Oh, wow.
So I advise you to go out there and look for it. That's a lot of fun.
I will.
Taking a look at, let's get to the big conflict. The big conflict in this episode is Chakotay versus Janeway. Believe it or not, even bigger than Voyager versus Borg, Voyager versus 8472. And here's the thing. I'll build it up, and then Flobo, you just take the hammer to it. The conflict is Janeway would do it this way. She would be more diplomatic. She would be more thoughtful. And Chakotay's like, do not trust the Borg. The minute they turn their back on you, get a knife right between their shoulder blades. These people are without honor. You do not make deals with them. You do not count on them. And the Borg are trying to nullify this deal over and over again. They keep getting more and more dangerous as they're part of this deal. Meanwhile, 8472 is actually watching what's going on. We're pretty sure they're using Kess as their like remote camera. And now they know that there is this dangerous cure that the EMH, the doctor, has come up with that will cure 8472's crawling crud, affliction. Is this, Flobo, Janeway versus Chakotay, is this just a clash of management styles? Or is it something more?
Here's our weekly wrestling reference. Brett screwed Brett, right? You had an agreement. You shook your hands on it.
You just can't 180 us like that. Hang on.
What I say?
Brett
It's true.
Screwed Brett.
He screwed Brett. You had an agreement, and you voiced your displeasure. You go, okay, I submitted the plan, and you can't be like, well, my captain's down. This is why Chakotay is such a jerk, because he couldn't tell her he couldn't convince her, but wait till she was down to go a different direction. And I'm not the biggest Janeway fan. I said it a bunch of times in the show. She's literally going to kill her crew to get them home early. But why? They're all dead. But Chakotay is someone that said, I'll do whatever you want. Just kidding. So yeah, he screwed himself over.
I mean, it turns out to be the right thing that Chakotay is such a hard ass. I love the thing where they get to the point where the Borg's just like, look, we've worked with you here on your ship, and now we're going to take over. And that's it. You're just going to be assimilated. And Chakotay's like, and open up the door and flush you all into space.
Yeah.
Which was wild. Absolutely crazy. I cheered. Was that not a big happy moment for you when Chakotay's like, oh, you tried to betray us? Well, out the airlock you go.
Absolutely. So this is a small win for Chakotay, but I guess my biggest issue is this shouldn't have happened, right? Because he was right in the last episode. But yes. Rihanna's that pathway. They find a way to say no deal, and they somehow won anyway. But it just makes you go,
In the meantime, a drone has been created that can directly verbally communicate with the humans of Voyager because and I don't know that the Borg are wrong about this. Humans argue too much. They waffle. They come up with different ideas. They don't agree. And so they're like, look, we should assimilate you guys enough that let me just put in the tip, is what they're saying. When with the Borg technology, it'll be easier to communicate. And they managed to get the Borg to understand they're not going to do that. That is absolutely not going to happen. So the Borg instead creates a drone that's good at talking. I don't know. It's Star Trek. Just let them do what they do. They're magicians. So they do create this Borg that is basically a diplomat. Not exactly. They do create this Borg that will speak to humans, and that is 7 of 9. Played by the exquisite, iconic Jeri Ryan. I cannot say enough about how much I love Jeri Ryan. Can we get back to that, please? Flobo, how much you love that Jeri Ryan?
She was fine. She was great. She was amazing.
She was fine? She was fine, or she was fine?
First the gas face, now this. I don't know what portal we're into, but apparently
from the 90s, man.
1991, New York City is alive.
We were down in the 90s. I lived in New York City from 1989 to 1996. We were down.
Yeah, we can say things like Audi 5000. No, I like Jeri Ryan and I like 7-9. And this is in my notes, but I gotta say, this whole thing has been the most contrived way to get someone on the show I've ever seen. We need to talk to people. Well, here's an emissary who could talk. It's like, give me some nuggets of backstory, but not too much. It's like, just get on with it then, you know?
When things are a bit too crazy, Chakotay, who in a previous episode, and I'm not even sure I've seen that episode, was Borgified. The Borg did like take over his spine and his nervous system, and he was once part Borg. So they hook him up with a way of communicating Borg-wise to 7 of 9, and he starts to see her memories as a little girl named Annika. And he's getting into her memories and trying to get her to remember that she's human. Is this boring? Because honestly, I've always had this, like, you remember who you are. That's like the biggest cliche in sci-fi, man.
And my favorite TV trope of all time, whatever is inside of you, fight it. Womp, womp.
That is so cliched. What, as you say, what a trope. What a big tropity trope. Oh, man. Yeah. Thankfully, it happens pretty quickly. Basically, the one Borg left on the ship is 7 of 9. And she is now cut off from the collective. She is all on her own. And by the time we get to the end of the episode, Janeway actually feels responsible for her and says, we're going to keep her. But you guys have to feed her and change her water. No, she doesn't say that.
I was like, what?
But she is like some kind of mascot, some kind of pet now. Were you comfortable with that? Because this is weird.
It is weird because if she is human enough, she should be certainly have to be sent home. And if she's Borg, she's still a Borg person. Now, it's kind of funny. It kind of pays off in Picard 30 years later. But I'm just saying, to me, it's kind of like, all right, there could have been a lot easier ways to get this done, but okay.
Yeah. One of the things that I think is pretty consistent for me with Voyager is my favorite Star Trek writing and my favorite Star Trek writers did not work on this show.
Mm.
And that in a nutshell is why you can't get me to feel guilty that I didn't watch Voyager. I was coming off Deep Space Nine with Ronald D. Moore, probably one of the best Star Trek writers I've ever known, and that includes Gene Roddenberry so much. There are some great writers on Star Trek, really not great work being put into these scripts on Voyager. And so now we've got a girl with big boobs. Girl with big boobs is on the show. Oh, I'm sorry. Here's another thing to throw in there. When they were asking the various actors how they felt about the addition of Seven of Nine to the show, everybody had their own reactions. But my favorite was from Tim Russ, who plays Tuvok, which was, I would look at the scripts and look at her lines and think, that used to be Tuvok's line. How's that got to feel?
Yeah.
They brought your replacement in.
You mentioned that once in the show, and now seeing these episodes, I can see that because he was supposed to be the logical one. What's more logical than an actual robot or part, whatever, synthetic life form, or yeah.
I mean, basically, she's a girl who was raised by robots. I think we find out she was assimilated when she was just a toddler, just like 3-4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
It is, yeah, it's a very awkward.
Wait, 18 plus 6? She was 6 years old? Let me know what year she was. I think she was like a girl.
She was a child. But I was under the impression she was quite young. Yeah, maybe she could have been 6. We do find out later there is a 2-parter in Voyager where she goes back and sort of relives those experiences. And I don't know, we'll probably watch those sometime in the future. However, I can tell you this, as we're getting to the end of this episode, I can tell you our guest next week is going to be Craig Lubin. Lubin, superstar of the comments and just all around funny man. And we are going to begin, I'm very excited about this, Flobo. We are going to begin the Emissary trilogy from Deep Space Nine.
Rad.
Looking deep into the experience of Captain Benjamin Sisko, Commander Sisko at the beginning, coming to terms with the fact that he is basically Space Jesus on Bajor. And my favorite series, my favorite character, my favorite storyline. I'm very excited about this. And it's a story that we're going to be doing for a little while. So if you don't like Deep Space Nine, you might want to take April off.
Damn. Get over it, he says.
And I'm saying April, I mean March. Okay, let's wind this one up. Flobo, what do you have? You know what? First off, I'm going to ask you for your tabs. What tabs do you have open?
Yeah, for sure. The release date of Starship Troopers, a tweet confirming your story about Harry Kim being sexy, because I was looking for that during the show. Whatever happened to Homeboys in Outer Space? Revival imminent? The answer is no. And this article about Janeway, apparently that accent's Irish and she's from Iowa. I had no idea about that. Check out the video for the gas face by Third Base after the show. Gotta do that. An expose about Kim Delaney and her experience on CSI Miami, which confirms what I was saying about her. UPN came out in 1995, and yes, we're the home of such shows as Roswell and The Love Boat, The Next Wave, and the Memory Alpha article. So I'm all over the place this week.
Right on. I'm just going to throw this in before we do your notes. Craig brings up that the Garrett Wang, Robert Duncan McNeil podcast is called The Delta Flyers. You can find it on YouTube. But like and subscribe to Starbase 80. Craig Robinson, you are
one more tab for you, though. The top 3 most attractive females in Star Trek by Ranker has Carol Marcus at number 3, T-Pole at number 2, and 7 of 9 at number 1.
Oh, and who's the third one?
Carol Marcus, you know, the J.J. Abrams Star Trek where she was like wearing the
blonde wearing underwear.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, it was supposed to be the Khan movie. It really was the Who's That Blonde movie. Oh, that was awesome. Okay. What do you have on your notepad, Mr. Boyce?
Let's see what I got. I think the CGI of Kim's infection was grosser than his actual infection. It was like weird, bro.
It's pretty weird.
Harry just shows up on the bridge after his infection. No mask, no vax card. He's a free thinker. Chakotay is whipped, bro. Confirmed. They crossed to an interdimensional rift. Well, of course they have. It wouldn't be Star Trek if they didn't.
Right, right.
Oh no, the Borg changed their minds. Who'd have thunk it? And finally, does anyone know what Tom Paris even does? Because I don't.
Tom Paris does everything, by the way. He's the best flyer. He's a doctor. He's a good husband to B'Elanna Torres. He does everything. That's Star Trek Voyager, Star Trek boyfriend.
Star Trek boyfriend.
Folks, join us for Deep Space Nine next week. It's going to be so much fun. Flobo and I love DS9. We love Captain Sisko, so we're all going to have a big love fest. The episode we are going to be watching is called Destiny. And hey, always, if you want to find out more about what's going on, I will try to get some of that information on Starbase 80, the Facebook page, Starbase 80. You can also find me at a Weber Internet Thingy on Facebook and on YouTube, or at Starbase 80 on Twitter. Flobo Boyce, where can people find you?
You can follow me at Flobo Boys here. And I got myself a Patreon, patreon.com/Flobo Boys. Unlock bonus content, special shows, interviews, and more.
Thank you so much for being with us. And hey, folks. Oh, wait a minute. Thanks so much for being with us. And hey, folks, as always, speaking for Commander Flobo Boys, this is Captain John. We're hoping that you will live long and prosper. Have a great week.
Boys, and not a baby. I don't know.
Hey, I'm going to take you out last.